Hello, everybody, and either welcome or welcome back to the Gender Libertarian Podcast. If you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. Alright, so the Democratic debates round 2 are now officially done and over. And before we get into a discussion about that, a little bit of housekeeping. You might have noticed the slightly modified intro, and that is because my podcast can now be found on Libertarian Institute and their podcast feed. So, hi, hello, welcome to all of our new Libertarian Institute listeners. Hey, how you doing? And a little side note too, I am also on the Lions of Liberty podcast, Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor. We did record that last night for night 2 of the Democratic debates. So if you are so interested, you can hop over to their feed and go listen to that over there. So just wanted to go ahead and put those two little things in your ear. So getting into the absolute shit show that has been the past 2 evenings of Democratic debates. And just to kind of explain how I do this, this is basically a recap. I'm not going to get like super deep into the weeds about everything that was said and not said over the almost 5 hours of debate that has taken place over the past 2 nights. Yeah, like the night 1 ended around 10:30, and night 2 didn't end till almost 11, and they were both supposed to end at like 10. So, obviously, there's the first problem right there, is this has been excruciating. Like, oh my god. And yes, I did actually watch both nights because this is what I do for you guys. So, as I do, I'm going to break this up into night 1 and night 2 because much like the first round of debates, it really felt like 2 entirely different vibes. Like they were 2 very different nights. So, obviously, starting with night 1, and a criticism that I have of both night 1 and night 2 is now, to start off with, we have the Star Spangled Banner being performed for reasons that I don't know or understand. Like, this isn't the Super Bowl. Like, why? And a new thing that they did that they did not do in round 1. And I think this is part of the reason why things ran so long to begin with, amongst other reasons. But now, to start out with, every candidate, and if you're not aware, we are still at 20 candidates. We had 10 one night, 10 the next night. Each one of them got like 3 minutes in the beginning to do a little intro. So, obviously, if you do 3 times 10, plus people going over and stopping for applause and all that stuff, you pretty much just sucked up like the first half hour of debate time right there with intros, which that was kind of ridiculous. And I was just like, why are we doing this? Like, this, maybe that would be fine if you didn't have so many candidates, but you do, and that's just sucking up valuable time, and it's going to cause things to run over time. Anyway, so night 1 was the Bernie Elizabeth Sanders kind of showpiece, which that's what it was meant to be. And I've talked about this before, but allegedly these 2 nights were supposed to have been picked by like random lottery, which, first of all, my ass. But once you started watching the debates, it became pretty obvious that, yeah, it was engineered. And the whole point of night 1 was to have Bernie and Elizabeth Warren on the same stage with just who the hell ever, and night 2 was supposed to be about Biden and Harris. So, the first thing that ended up dominating the conversation was healthcare on both nights. Pretty much a good half hour at least on night 1 was devoted to discussing Medicare for all and the healthcare plans and possible single payer and all of that. And for what it's worth, Jake Tapper went in directly and asked Elizabeth Warren, because if you remember, during the first round of debates, Bernie Sanders had to admit that in order to implement his healthcare plan, you would have to raise taxes on the middle class. So Tapper asked Warren point blank, like, would you be willing to raise taxes on the middle class? And of course, like, nobody really wanted to answer that question. Elizabeth Warren just completely ducked the question altogether and just did a thing that, this is a personal pet peeve of mine in debates, is when the candidate completely ignores the question they're being asked and just goes off on a tangent about what the hell ever they want to talk about. And it's like, this isn't your event. You don't get to talk about whatever you want to talk about. You answer the question. That's the point of being here. That's the point of moderators. That's the point of this debate. Somebody's asking you a question, you answer it. Anyway, moving on from that, just a personal aside that I know every candidate does it for the most part, and it's annoying to me. But everybody kind of ducked the taxation question, obviously, because the obvious answer to it is, yes, you will have to raise taxes on the middle class in order to do this Medicare for all / single payer, where all of a sudden now we've kind of gone from this Medicare for all into outright advocating single payer, which was a very interesting leap. But the only person that was actually trying to interject any kind of sense into this conversation was John Delaney. And bless his heart, he tried, but nobody on the stage was really hearing it. So basically, the Democratic plan, from what I understand, depending on which Democrat you're talking about, some people will insist that you can still keep your private health care. Some people want to abolish private health care. But yeah, it's all basically kind of leading towards single payer, to be honest. The next topic that came up, which was very interesting to me, especially the contrast between night 1 and night 2, was immigration. Now, on night 1, there was definitely a much more stark divide between those who are more on the border security side of things, mainly Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and the border decriminalization crowd, which it's the contrast between night 1 and night 2 on this, like I said, was pretty stark. And it kind of blows a hole in the whole argument that the Democratic field is a monolith and they all want open borders, which, to explain, decriminalization is not open borders. Basically, what you would be doing under a decriminalization plan would be decriminalizing hopping the border. It would no longer be a federal offense. It would be a civil offense. It would take away being able to be jailed for it, which means that all of these people that are being currently held in CPB custody for hopping the border, that wouldn't exist anymore because that wouldn't be able to legally exist. You might be able to find these people, and you would basically handle it like the same way if you or I got, say, a speeding ticket. Like, obviously you have to pay your fine, or you get a bench warrant, or you go to court and you go when you're supposed to go, or you get a bench warrant. But yeah, handling it that way versus our current way, which is what is causing a lot of these sort of mass holding situations that we have right now. So it was interesting to watch that kind of go down on the first night. Another rather interesting thing that came out of the first night was there were a lot of times and a lot of questions, especially coming from Tapper and a bit from Dana Bash too, not Don Lemon, because Don Lemon was busy pandering to the Twitter crowd with his questions, were kind of specifically engineered to ask candidate A what they feel about candidate B's proposal for XYZ. And so it ended up a lot of times of people kind of piling on Bernie Sanders for being too extreme, which I'm all for piling on Bernie Sanders and making him, like, explain himself. I'm all for that. That was enjoyable, but it was just a very, very odd kind of thing. And this format was just weird for me and really kind of added to the dumpster fieriness of this whole thing. And it makes it, this format, and I'll go into this a little deeper when I talk about my overall feelings on this, but this format is just, no, like this, something has to be done. Like this was just ridiculous. But obviously the Green New Deal was touched on, And, of course, it's still as stupid and dumpster fiery and garbagey as it's always been. And you had people on stage pretty much openly advocating for central planning based around the Green New Deal, which pretty much drops the whole pretense that this is about climate change and that it really is more about economic realignment. So there's that. But yeah, and then there was like a weird section of time where, and when I say section of time, like they devoted a good 10 minutes to the idea of, would you take nuclear war off the table preemptively? And I don't even remember how the hell we got there. But this was like a discussion, and it was kind of like, whoa, wait, what the fuck is this? Like, who brought this up? I think it was off of a Tapper question, but like I said, it was weird. Like, this whole thing was just so weird. But moving on to the winners and losers of the first night, I have got to say, obviously, and Marianne was part of night one. So, my first winner is, of course, Marianne Williamson, because not only did Marianne do her Marianne thing, and obviously her searches spiked. She definitely won the Google most searched for night one. But a thing about Marianne, and a lot of people like to dismiss her and not take her very seriously, and a lot of the things that she said on night one make a lot of sense, and the one particularly that everybody has gone in on is that Donald Trump has released dark psychic forces, and it's going to just be a very bad dark time for Democrats if they don't understand this, which a thing that Marianne does very well that I've not seen any other candidate do is she kind of gets on like the high top level of why Trump appeals to certain people. And she understands that you're not going to beat Trump because you have a awesome healthcare plan, or you have a climate change plan, or this or that or the other. She went in on wonkiness, and she's absolutely right, because she is the only one that I see that understands that Trump has kind of tapped into a certain vein of discontent that exists in this country. And his appeal to those people is not so much that he has these grand plans to fix their lives or make the country better, but that he can make those people feel like they're being seen and heard. And she seems to get that, whether it's intuitively or I don't know how she's managed to get here, but she's the only person that I've seen actually manage to understand like why and how it is Trump does what he does. And even over the past couple of weeks with the tweets and the veiled racism and all of that, like she seems to understand that he's tapping into something that, yes, is very dark. And it's like, it's hard to explain, but it's like she gets it. Like she understands on a high level what it is that people want to hear, and she's very good at saying it. And so on that stage, she stood out by being the person who isn't sitting here and getting into the weeds about policy or something like that, but actually like almost speaking past everything that's going on the stage and actually speaking to people at home who are watching this and kind of almost thinking beyond like this primary bullshit towards like general election shit. So that's why I put her in the winner category. I think that she, on that first night, was the person that helped her case the most. Not that I think that she's going to be the next president or the next vice president or the next anything really, but she's someone that is kind of pushing the conversation in a certain way. And obviously she's very popular on social media because she is who she is. And it's just, it's fun to talk about Marianne, but because she's talking about shit that like nobody else is talking about. So it's interesting. She's interesting. And my other winner from the first night is John Delaney. And let me explain. This is not to say that he is going to gain any traction or any bounce off of that debate. But what he did was he tried, bless his heart, he tried to explain to everybody on the stage, especially Bernie and Elizabeth, how these plans that you're proposing are not going to play well in the general election. Like Medicare for All, where you take away people's private health insurance, is not going to play well. Like the Green New Deal is not going to play well. Like he seemed to be the only person on stage that remembered, like, okay, there's a general election after this, and if you are the candidate, you need to start thinking about how you're going to appeal to a broad audience and not just this very small, tiny online audience who really seems to be pushing the conversation. And he basically got told, shut up, centrist. But, I mean, he tried. Bless his heart, he tried to explain. And I put him in the winner category because I think over time he will be vindicated as the person who will be able to point and say, I told you so, when one of these people ends up being the candidate. And at this point, it looks like either like Biden or Bernie, depending. Of course, it's July/August of 2019, and God only knows what the hell's going to happen between now and primary season, but he tried. Bless him, he was the only person on stage who was actually making any kind of sense and sounded any kind of sane, and basically got slammed for it. And I think in the end he'll be vindicated. Now, my losers for night one are everybody who wasn't Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, or Marianne Williamson, because everybody has forgotten who else was on that stage by this point. So, I mean, it was kind of like nobody really distinguished themselves all that well. And even for what it's worth, like I said, this was supposed to be a showcase for Bernie and Liz. And I honestly don't think either one of them really came off all that well either. Elizabeth Warren didn't directly answer a single question asked of her, which I've already explained my annoyance on that, but that is something that, especially going forward, if she wants to gain traction, you're going to have to answer questions. Like, you can't just duck questions and just talk about whatever the hell it is you want to talk about. And Bernie, I mean, for his part, Bernie is Bernie. And my problem with Bernie at this point is he's not giving anybody anything new. Like, Bernie says exactly what the hell you think he's going to say, which, I mean, there is something to be said for that kind of consistency, but it's just, some people just do not operate very well in these certain circumstances where you have to do, like, these very short sound bites. And he doesn't. Like, there's just something about him in a debate setting that just doesn't really click. Like, he's just the loud old guy screaming about healthcare. It's like, it's weird. Like, he just, I don't think anybody outside of Marianne came out looking very well on the first night. So, moving on to night two, which was supposed to be, obviously, the showcase between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Kind of the rematch from the first round of debates. So again, we have more stupid intros, and we move again. They start off with the healthcare discussion again, which is more of the same. Like, at some point, you just, there's not a lot distinguishing a lot of these people, and it was kind of like, and I wish Delaney was here to tell everybody on night two what he tried to tell everybody on night one, but the one interesting part, and this was basically the setup for this whole question, and they let Biden and Harris go on at each other for like 10 minutes on this, about basically Biden calling out Kamala for her healthcare plan, and rightly pointing out how she's changed positions, how it's kind of squishy, there's not a lot of details, and so there was that. And there wasn't... There was no, like, fireworks moment there. There was just these debates for me were just not as good as the first round. They just weren't. Anyway, moving on to immigration, which they kind of followed the same sort of pattern from night one, whereas they tackled healthcare first and then moved on to immigration, and then moved on to more kind of randomy sort of shit. It's like I said, it's weird, y'all. So, the move over to immigration, and this is the one I was really interested in because night 2 had Julian Castro, who was the first person to come out with the border decriminalization plan and kind of started this whole debate into motion. So I was really excited to see him on stage and see if he would have time to kind of flesh out more his ideas and to see this discussed with him in the room, because it was his plan and his idea. So got to see a little bit more of that. Night 2's crowd was definitely much more friendly to the idea of decriminalization than Night 1's crowd was, with the exception of Joe Biden, who uttered the phrase that makes my blood boil, that immigration seekers need to get in line. And it's like, bish, what line? There's no fucking line. Stop saying get in line. But a thing that is interesting, and a lot of people called out Biden for this on Twitter, was that's basically what Trump would say. And my thing, and I'm interested to see how exactly this is going to play out, because it seems like the top 3 right now, you've got Biden, you've got Bernie, and I guess you could put Elizabeth Warren in there. Like, they keep trying to make Elizabeth Warren happen. I don't know what CNN's fetish is with Elizabeth Warren, but they keep trying to make her happen. So I'll put her in there too. Especially on the topics of immigration and economics, especially domestic economy. There's not a lot of daylight between their positions and Trump's positions. So if one of these people is the candidate, I'm not entirely sure how they're going to debate Trump on these ideas when, in essence, they agree with them. Like, I mean, it's even to the point where Tucker Carlson endorses Elizabeth Warren's economic plans. What Bernie said night 1 and what Biden said on night 2 very closely echoes what Trump says. So I don't know how exactly they are going to differentiate themselves from Trump. And it seems like, especially the immigration thing, is going to start being more and more of an electoral issue, I think. Even though the debates led with healthcare, and that is what a lot of Democratic candidates like to kind of lead with and kind of try to use to differentiate themselves from Republicans, is we've got this healthcare plan, which kind of involves being a little creative about the fact that Obama was president for 8 years and Obamacare passed, and that was kind of supposed to fix healthcare. But apparently we still need another healthcare overhaul. And the cognitive dissonance of trying to, like, push your healthcare plan when you were pushing a healthcare plan that was supposed to take care of all this, and therefore this shouldn't be a discussion in the first place, is a little odd to watch people parse. But what is interesting that came out of night 2 is the way night 1 kind of became beat up on Bernie night. Night 2 kind of came beat up on Biden night. And what happened is, and there were plenty of criticisms of Biden's record all by itself before he was vice president, especially on criminal justice. And they go back to the stupid busing controversy, which, whatever, it's stupid. I don't even know why we need to discuss that again. But a lot of the attacks, especially on immigration, were coming at Biden because he was Obama's vice president. So it kind of was a way of the people on stage using Biden almost as an avatar for Obama to attack Obama's policies, which is very interesting because, first off, these fools spent 8 years ignoring what the fuck Obama was doing on immigration. And now, all of a sudden, you want to talk about it to try to differentiate yourself from Trump. So there's this weird kind of vibe where it kind of feels like Obama's about to get thrown under the bus for progressives to make their bona fides, which is going to be wild to watch, especially after all this time of everybody pointing out, especially on immigration, because that's where it really, like, the Obama, Joe Biden avatar stand-in sort of thing happened the most. We spent so many years pointing out how absolutely fucking atrocious Obama's immigration policy was. And all during the Obama administration, nobody wanted to talk about it. Up until like 15 minutes ago, nobody wanted to talk about it. And now all y'all want to talk about it. Really? Wow, I mean, welcome to the conversation, but goddamn, where the hell have you all been for the past 10 years? Like, now it's a problem because of Trump. And it's just like, it's weird. And I'm wondering, especially with, I wonder if this is going to happen with Obamacare too, if it's all of a sudden going to be, after all this time of Democrats supporting Obamacare, all of a sudden it's going to be trashed as, well, it didn't go far enough, and it wasn't good enough, and I mean, we saw this happen with W, where after a certain point, Republicans were willing to throw him under the bus to try to make their bona fides, but it wasn't like right after dude left office. Like, this is kind of fresh. Like, I'm really surprised that they're going here with Obama now in 2019. But I guess that's what you got to do to try to pander to a certain base. Anyway, there was on night 2 an impeachment discussion that didn't happen on night 1. I don't think impeachment got brought up on night 1. If it did, it was briefly, and I don't even remember it. But of course, there was a whole big discussion about impeachment on night 2. And, like, Kamala is in support of it. I think pretty much almost everybody on stage was in support of impeachment proceedings, which, again, you're pandering to a very small base of people who support impeachment. And it's one of those that, again, we need like a Delaney over on the side waving his hand saying, this isn't going to play well in the general election. Think ahead. Long game, guys, over here. You gotta think. Like, the people on Twitter are not representative of the whole body electorate. Guys. But no, there was no Delaney there to try to rein in anybody. So they had a long discussion about impeachment. It was stupid. Anyway, moving on. Night 2's winners. Of course, you have to give the first slot to Tulsi. Because not only did she end up once again being the most Googled person after the debate, here's why. And I'll go ahead and preface this by saying, overall, Tulsi was not as strong in the second round of debate as she was in the first round, but she still did end up making what I think ends up being like the most pop moment from both nights of the debate. This is the one that really seems to have stuck and might actually do some damage, but Tulsi was asked by Jake Tapper the question was that after the first round of debates and the whole Kamala Harris, Joe Biden busing controversy thing, that Tulsi had said that it was, I forget exactly what the phrase or the verbiage was that she said, but basically that, like, Kamala was kind of full of shit for calling him out on it, especially since, like, not even the next day, Kamala basically backed off of what she said and agreed with Biden. But Tulsi took that question, and instead of just straight up answering the question, which I think she could have done just as much damage by pointing out that essentially Kamala's whole attack in the first round of debates on the busing thing was bullshit because she actually agrees with Biden. She took it and kind of linked it back to a criminal justice conversation that was happening before the question. And she pointed out that Kamala Harris, back when she was Attorney General over in California, had a horrible record of imprisoning people for marijuana, for keeping people in longer than their sentencing, and she pointed out that she gave out these long sentences for people who were charged with marijuana possession, and that when she was asked about it, she laughed, and that ended up being like the moment. Like, that ended up being like the pop moment that everybody has latched onto. But also, in Tulsi's defense, she did, and on the second half of the debate, she kind of got her footing. She was a little shaky in the beginning, I felt, but she finally kind of got her footing, and then, of course, she brought it back to troop withdrawal, so that's kind of her signature issue, so she got to have that out there. Her closing argument was kind of very weird. Basically pointing out that, we could end up getting bombed and we'll all die, so vote for me. But, yeah, she gets to be the winner because she kind of won the internet on, overall, over both nights. So, obviously, first slot has to go to Tulsi. Second slot, I will give to Cory Booker. Because, first off, I don't remember when the hell the last time was that we even thought about Cory Booker. Like, did anybody even remember that he was still running? But in night 2, he did take the time to discuss criminal justice reform and kind of forced a conversation on that, and did go after Biden for his support for the 1994 the bill that basically was just horrible. We don't need to go into all that. I'm sure everybody at this point knows what that crime bill was. So Cory Booker got some time in to attack Biden on that, and to, like I said, bring a conversation about criminal justice reform onto the Democratic debate stage, which was very beneficial to him because that's kind of his area of expertise. And it was also nice to just have somebody bring that up. And so Cory Booker got some airtime to remind everybody, like, hey, I exist, I'm still here. Because, like I said, I don't even remember last time anybody even, like, when was the last time he did anything that anybody talked about? Like, where has Cory Booker been? I was just like, oh, look at there, he's back. And the third winner, I will say, is Joe Biden, because he didn't, I mean, it's not exactly like he knocked it out of the park on night 2, but it was definitely a marked improvement over the first round of debates. And seeing as he is the front runner, and he did end up, after the first round of debates, he did take a bit of a hit, but his poll numbers came back. And so he did well enough to kind of cement his frontrunner status, I think. He didn't have any super, like, horrifying moments like on round 1. I mean, he didn't, like, wow anybody on night 2, but he did, I think, handle the things that were thrown at him a little bit better than he did during the first round. Like, he seemed more prepared and more ready to be attacked than he was in the first round of debates. So I think he came off well enough. Now for the night 2 losers. And I've got to say, the biggest loser over both evenings has got to be Kamala Harris. Because not only did she get beat up by Joe Biden on her healthcare plan, and she got pretty much murdered by Tulsi for being a horrible cop. Yeah, that is like trending on Twitter, like Kamala Harris destroyed. But the thing that really, I think, kind of cements the fact that she is the biggest loser was not only what happened on stage, but what happened off stage. So after the whole Tulsi thing, so after the debates, obviously Kamala was asked about it, and her response was that she doesn't care about what Tulsi has to say because she's only polling at point whatever %, and whatever, she likes Assad, so I don't care what she has to say, which is the dumbest fucking thing she could have possibly said in that moment. People, if you don't have anything nice to say, sometimes just keep your mouth shut. Mean girling your way through this was just a horrible look for Kamala, especially coming off of the fact that Tulsi's criticisms were legitimate. Like, this isn't made up. Like, she didn't just make shit up on the fly. And Biden's criticisms weren't made up either. So it's a horrible look for her. She's probably going to take a hit in the polls. She's definitely taking a hit online. And so, yeah, she's just the one that came out looking the worst out of these debates, which is the inverse of the first round, where everybody pretty much agreed that Kamala was really the big winner from the first round of the debates over both nights. So, yeah, not a good night for Kamala. Second loser is Kirsten Gillibrand, which she needed to have something big happen here because, again, I don't think anybody remembers that she's running. Like, I don't know. Nobody even talks about her, but she spent what little time she had on the stage basically playing the woman card and failed miserably. I think she basically just annoyed the hell out of everybody last night. Like, nobody has anything nice to say about her, if they have anything to say about her at all. But it's just like, I think if anybody drops out between now and the next debate, I think it would be her. Although I don't think anybody's going to drop out between now and the next debate. And my last loser for night 2, and this is probably going to piss off a whole bunch of people, but Andrew Yang. Listen, I know a lot of you like him. Okay, cool, whatever. To me, he's very much like a one-trick pony. And it's like, dude, we get it. You don't like automation. Can you talk about something else? Maybe? And I mean, you mentioned libertarians once. That was cool, but it's like, I don't know. Like, he's going to have to get a little bit of a wider policy stance to kind of get into these debates on some more of a substantial level. That's just me. Like, he manages to bring everything back to automation. Like, even during the immigration debates, he brought it back to automation. He's like, if you go to these factories, you don't see them full of immigrants, you see them full of robots. It's like, okay, dude, we get it. But what do you feel about immigration? Like, that's important too. Like, you gotta kind of diversify here, dude. So, that is night 1 and night 2. So, overall thoughts on both nights. Once again, the same way I felt about the first round of the debates, I feel like night 1 was better than night 2. I feel like it was a more interesting discussion on night 1 than there was on night 2. It is still very obvious to me that, at least as far as CNN is concerned, Warren is the favorite. Like, they give her all the airtime, they give her all the questions, like, they're trying to make Elizabeth Warren happen. And it's still abundantly obvious to me that they're pushing Elizabeth Warren onto America. And whether this is going to help her or not, I don't know, but we shall see. Something that is rather interesting, though, is the viewership numbers. And apparently I've not seen anything yet for night 2, but from night 1, viewership is basically half of what it was during round 1, night 1. Which I think kind of, and I made this point when I talked about round 1, was that I felt like these two debates, like round 1 and round 2, were way too close to each other. Like, it's only been a month. Like, I don't think that there was really anything substantially different between round 1 and round 2, like, policy-wise, that would have changed to make people more interested in watching this. And I also think that people tuned in more to round 1 because it was round 1. Like, it's new. Like, what is this? Like, what are we doing? What's this going to look like? And then there just wasn't as much interest to watch round 2. So, that's my thoughts on that. We shall see. There isn't a Democratic debate in August. Thank God we get a month off. The next one is at the end of September. So we shall see if maybe waiting what would pretty much be 2 months might make a little bit more of a difference. It might make a little bit more of a bump. Who knows? But for my biggest criticism of the debates in general, and that is this format. The DNC has got to do something. Like, this cannot keep going on the way it is. Like I said, the first night was 2.5 hours. The second night was almost 3 hours. And I'm sympathetic to the fact that we are at this point where they allowed 20 people to be on the stage in the first place. And so there's only so much you can do with the format when you have that many people. But there's no way there needs to be that many people. Like, this, the DNC has got to figure out something. Like, they've got to figure out a way sometime before January of 2020, which is when I think that the general public will actually start paying attention to these debates, to get this down to being a 1 night, 2 hour event. Like, that's it. They've got to figure out a way. Like, however ruthless you have to get with qualifications to get on the stage, they've got to fix this problem. Like, they fucked up. They have got to fix it. I can't handle doing another 2 night nonsense extravaganza like the one that just happened. Like, it was, I'm telling you people, it was fucking painful. But this is what I do for you guys. And another criticism that I saw a lot of people have, and again, I don't fault anybody for this, and that is people bitching about the moderators, which was Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, and Don Lemon. Now, Don Lemon just Don Lemoned his time, and no, can we not with Don Lemon? Please don't let him moderate any more debates, please. But a lot of people were getting mad about, especially the questions that Jake Tapper were asking, because he was asking, like, debate-style questions, like wanting candidate A to talk about candidate B's whatever. The problem is that because you had so many people on the stage, and because you are working within a time constraint, answers were supposed to be limited to a minute apiece, and then rebuttals as the moderator saw fit. And this is, I mean, I'm not mad at the moderators for cutting off people to try to keep it moving. Like, that's what they had to do. But people were pissed off about that. It's like, again, this isn't their fault. Like, it's not Tapper's fault. It's not Bash's fault. It's not Lemon's fault. It's your job as moderator is to make sure that you like come in at time. Like, it just, oh my God, the DNC, they need to fix it, and they are attempting to fix it. So, let me explain to you the new rules for the September debates, and definitely for the September debates. I'm sure that if these rule changes do not produce the intended results, there will be further rule changes. But anyway, let me go ahead and read to you what the rule changes are. Alright, I'm reading this from a Vox piece because, well, that's handy. Candidates must meet both a polling and donor threshold. At least 2% in 4 national DNC-approved polls, and at least 130,000 unique donors, coming from at least 400 unique donors in 20 or more states. The deadline to reach the qualifications for the September debate is August 28th. For anyone closely following along at home, those are double the 1% polling threshold and a 65,000 donor minimum from the past 2 rounds, when candidates only had to clear one of the 2 bars. So, as you can see, they are basically doubling the requirements to get in to the debates, and especially the donor thing. I know that's how a lot of people were getting on stage, and to try to kind of explain this sentence, because I had to read it a couple times to understand it, basically, the donor thing is a candidate has to have at least 130,000 unique donors. Within that group of people, there has to be at least 400 donors from 20 different states. So it's not like a bunch of people in New York can donate to somebody and get them in. Like, it has to be a more nationally dispersed donor pool in order to now make it into the debates. And obviously, 2% is, well, twice of 1%, but it's still not entirely undoable. But the fact that they have now coupled both of those things together, and that you have to meet both thresholds to make it onto the debate stage, is something that is going to limit the field. How much, I don't know. Because as it stands right now, there's only 7 candidates that meet that threshold, and that's Biden, Booker, Buttigieg, Harris, O'Rourke, Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. Now, when I'm recording this, it is August 1st. They have until the 28th to meet these new standards in order to get onto the stage. There's not a cap that's been put on, and I see a lot of people say that it's going to be capped at 10. The DNC, as far as I can tell, has not capped it at 10, and they do still have the option of having a 2-night event if there are more than 10 people who make the cut. So, as it stands right now, you have 7. So, if 3 more, then you round out the first night. If there's any more than that, then you might go into a 2-night, or however they would handle that. I'm not entirely sure, but if this does not cut it down to a 1-night event, I can see the DNC placing even stricter rules going forward. Because, like I said, like this format has to get fixed. Like, this cannot go on next year when there's people other than us political wonks paying attention to it, because no normal person is going to sit through what I just sat through over the past 2 nights. Like, that's not going to happen. So the DNC is trying to rein this in somewhat. Hopefully they will be successful. Fingers crossed, because as much as I love watching the Mariannes and the Tulsis of the world get on stage and pull conversations in a certain direction or bring up certain points, this field has to get cold. Like, this is insane. So we shall see how many people end up making it to the September debates, and I think that's really going to be the determiner of who stays in and who drops out. I don't see anybody dropping out anytime soon. I don't really see it happening before the holidays. I really, really don't see it happening before the next debates, because what this sets up is basically a ready-made fundraiser drive for people who are not already qualified to go to their donor base and say, do this, help me, get me on the stage. So I don't think anybody's going to drop out between now and then. Like I said, if anyone does it, my money would be on Gillibrand. But anyway, that is the round 2 Democratic debate in the books. There we go. Now I'm going to go wipe this all from my brain and pretend it never happened, because Jesus Christ, it's painful to watch status be status. Like, it's just, oh my God. It's like, it's either going to be one of these jackwagons or Trump, and it's just like, I'm not looking forward to it. It's going to be horrible. No matter who ends up winning next year, it's going to fucking suck if you're a libertarian. And so that's why I actually do watch these debates and try to keep track of it, because one of these jackwagons is going to be a presidential nominee. And they all suck in their own unique, special ways. They all suck. Some of them suck more than others, but it's just, it's kind of depressing when you think about it, that no matter what, the next 4 years is going to be a very bumpy ride for us. So anyway, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. And as always, if you did make it this far, thank you. And if you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. Take care, and until next time.